The 1998 Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak Special is the stuff of racing legend. It's an outrageous, fire-breathing machine built for one purpose: to conquer the clouds at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. For most people, it's a car that got burned into their memories from this game right here, Gran Turismo, where it dominated virtual racetracks with impossible grip and ludicrous horsepower. But behind the pixels lies a real car with an even crazier story. Join me as we take a look at this car, and we're going to test it over at the Tokyo Expressway as well, not only in the original configuration, but with the engine swap variant that was added to the game, to see how it lines up against cars we've already tested. The Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, also called the Race to the Clouds, is one of the most dangerous and demanding motorsports events in the world. It's a 12.42 mile or 20 kilometer course that ascends over 4,700 feet to the 14,000 foot summit, and it features 156 turns with a razor thin margin of error. Suzuki, a relatively small player in global motorsports, had been competing at Pikes Peak since the late 80s, but by the late 90s they were no longer content with a class win. They wanted an overall victory, and they had the perfect man for the job. Nobuhiro Tajima, a rally driver and engineer nicknamed Monster, was Suzuki's motorsport icon. His blend of driving skill, mechanical vision, and fearlessness made him the ideal pilot and project lead for their Pikes Peak ambitions. Together with Suzuki Sport, the brand's in-house tuning and racing division, Tajima began developing increasingly radical machines based on the Escudo, or in the States and some other markets it's known as the Vitara. The 1998 version would be the most extreme yet. Although it bore the name Escudo, the 1998 car shared virtually nothing with the road-going SUV. It was a purpose-built, twin-engined silhouette racer, wrapped vaguely in an Escudo-like skin. Think of it more like an LMP car on stilts with wings from a sci-fi jet. It featured two 2.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6 engines, one in the front and one in the rear. They created an estimated 981 horsepower at 9,000 RPM and about 690 foot-pounds of torque. The drivetrain was four-wheel drive and custom-built for maximum grip, and the car only weighed 1,700 pounds, a little more than that. The enormous front splitter, side skirts, active rear wing, and vented bodywork kept the car planted through the corners, and it featured a tube-framed race chassis with carbon composite body panels. The power-to-weight ratio on this car was staggering, even by Pikes Peak standard. Suzuki and Tajima entered the 98 race with high hopes. The car was faster and more aggressive and more advanced than any of their previous efforts. Unfortunately, the Escudo's Pikes Peak Special was plagued by reliability issues and mechanical gremlins that kept it from securing an outright victory that year. Still, its performance was jaw-dropping. It blazed through sectors and posted competitive times, proving it had the raw pace to win. And even though it didn't win overall, it just became a cult icon. The Escudo reached its true status and became immortal in Polyphony's Gran Turismo 2, and it showed up in 3, where the car was nearly unbeatable. And this was actually released just a year later. Its 0 to 60 time was in under 2 seconds with a top speed over 240 miles per hour. And you could do something with the aerodynamics that made the car do a wheelie and hit like 900 miles per hour back in the day. It had absurd grip and acceleration and wild looks that were seared into every kid's brain, including my own. For many, this car was their introduction to Pikes Peak and to Japanese engineering madness, and to the very concept of a purpose-built hill climb monster. While Tajima and Suzuki never won the overall Pikes Peak crown with the Escudo, they laid the groundwork for the eventual victory in 2011, driving the electric Monster Sport E-Runner. The 98 Escudo Pikes Peak Special, however, remains the most mythic of them all. Its silhouette is burned into the motorsport folklore as an icon of excess, engineering ambition, and the ultimate underdog quest to race above the clouds. If you have made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you around for future content if you're willing to watch. But let's go ahead and bring these cars over to the Tokyo Expressway and see how they handle our lap. The Escudo Pikes Peak race car is a little bit strange when it comes to engine swaps, because the engines that are built into it when you buy the car are actually more powerful than what we replace it with. In stock form, fully built out, the car ends up with 833 performance points, with the horsepower hitting 1,186 and the torque at 814. So this thing is an absolute beast. It hits the scales at 1,764 pounds. So included with that massive amount of horsepower, you have a lightweight chassis. It's capable of hitting speeds of 211 miles per hour, and part of that is because it's got those giant wings that are going to slow it down, but they keep it planted massively well. It's also an all-wheel drive car, so this car can actually be detuned down below 600 performance points, and it's capable of winning the Tokyo 600 race for grinding credits, but you'll want to use a wall riding technique, which some people aren't a fan of. I actually don't like that myself. It was a little bit of fun when I did it for a video, but I don't make it a habit. But it actually kind of felt like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, so I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. The fuel wasn't too bad on this one, where we were able to get about 5 laps on a tank, and the tires wore at about 15% to the front and 20% to the rear. So this car overall just works really well. And the nostalgia from Gran Turismo 2 is worth owning this car all by itself. We ended up crossing the line at 1 minute 46 seconds, .690, which puts it way up at the top, just behind the Venmo from 2014 and just in front of the Aventador. Now this is a great car overall, but let's take a quick look at the power curves, and we can see here how peaky this thing is, and that's the origin of adding an engine swap to this. With the twin Hayabusa motor, it's a blended engine where they basically fused 2 4-cylinder Hayabusas together, making a V8 out of it. It actually creates a much more drivable car. It's not so peaky, you don't get that surge of horsepower, but you do lose some performance because it is a smaller engine. The swapped variant, fully built, ends up with 789 performance points, 759 horsepower, and about half of the torque at 477 foot-pounds. And with that, it actually adds 33 pounds, bringing the overall weight to 1,797 pounds. So it's still not bad, and it still handles really well. But I haven't tried this one on the Tokyo 600. I would actually suspect that it may be a better car just because it's less peaky. I only hit a top speed of 185 miles per hour, and when I am looking for cars for that race, I do look for them to be over 200 miles per hour, so it may not really qualify. But either way, it's a nice car, and this opens this thing up to a lot of options for racing other circuits that you may not want to run with that really high horsepower peaky version. I ended up seeing 4 laps on a tank of fuel, and tire wear was pretty much the same, with 15% wear at the front and 20% wear to the rear. So this is kind of a luxury swap. This engine is actually more powerful in most of the cars that it has as an offering. So this is something for players that want to have a complete collection, or just insanely love the Escudo and want to have multiple versions of it. We ended up crossing the line quite a bit slower, down a few positions, in 45th place at 1 minute 51 seconds, .909, and that put it behind the engine swapped 25th anniversary Countach and just in front of the engine swapped Z34 Fairlady Z. So still a great car, just it's probably not worth swapping. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and stay clean out there.